Recently, online Etsy seller forums have been bursting with conversations about listings being taken down and shops being suspended for no apparent reason, including print-on-demand shops. There's no magic answer to this, but I thought it would be useful to take a few minutes and talk about what's been going on, what Etsy might be doing, and some things to keep in mind as a seller on the platform. Okay, so first, what has been happening lately on Etsy? Within the last few weeks, there's been an increase in sellers reporting having their listings taken down or their shop suspended without warning. Some have had success appealing to Etsy support, while others have had no luck. Unfortunately, this type of thing is not entirely out of the ordinary on Etsy, but it seems to be happening more lately. My shop hasn't been affected by this, at least not at this point. Now, there has also been some swirl because of varying responses given by Etsy support through chats and emails as sellers have reached out for help. At some point, someone was told that using mock-up images for their listings rather than real images of the finished product may have been the issue, and that caused sort of a chain reaction of concerns about whether print-on-demand sellers are going to have a huge issue on Etsy, since all of us use mock-up photos in our listings, unless of course you've bought samples and taken your own photos. Let's just take a second to consider what's been going on at Etsy this year, and then also more recently. In February of 2023, a company called Citron Report released a report suggesting that Etsy had a huge volume of problematic listings that clearly violate Etsy policies, including counterfeit goods, products that violate copyright and trademark laws, and products that were obviously mass-produced finished products that are being listed in the handmade category, even though they're just finished drop-shipped products. Etsy responded by stating it has internal processes to flag and remove listings that violate its terms of use, but let's face it, we've all seen plenty of listings that are obviously infringing on the rights of brands like Disney, for example, or products that appear to be bulk produced rather than made to order. Etsy later made more announcements about cracking down on drop-shipped products specifically in the handmade item category, doing more to identify and take them down. In September, a post in the Etsy seller forum announcement section called an update on how we're keeping Etsy special specifically stated this: as Etsy grows, we're improving enforcement across our marketplace with a particular focus on our handmade policy to help unique items and the people who sell them truly shine. It goes on to say they're doubling down on enforcement while elevating the best of Etsy. So far this year, we've increased the number of listings we've removed for violating our handmade policy by 112%, and we plan to further accelerate enforcement in the coming months. That was in September. So this is the coming months. We've also recently clarified that policy violations, including handmade policy violations, prevent sellers from earning Star Seller and Etsy Picks badges. This helps to ensure we're only spotlighting and elevating sellers whose items reflect the spirit of Etsy. So they're basically telling us here, expect to see more listings taken down if we, Etsy, think you're violating the handmade policy. And specifically, they're going to increase that volume in Q4 2023, which we are in right now. A link to that post is in the description if you want to go read it for yourself. Now that post continues to also say this: adding more human reviews to our enforcement processes. While we need to use automated systems in order to review the millions of listings on Etsy, human reviews are critical to ensuring those decisions are accurate. Now, when a listing is flagged by our automated controls for potentially violating our handmade policy, it will remain active but not appear in search results and recommendations in order to give our specialists time to review the listing. Our team will determine if it should be removed or if it can be sold on Etsy and be made visible again. The review process typically takes less than 24 hours. It continues: we've heard your feedback that listing removals can be disruptive to your businesses, and we believe making more space for human reviews will help reduce instances where we remove items in error, while still enabling us to limit the visibility of items that may violate our handmade policy. As we test this new process, we'll also be working to add more transparency to let sellers know if their listings have been temporarily removed from search for review. Okay, now, if you've read many of the online forum discussions recently, it sounds like that part of their statement has not been happening as fast as the increase in removal of listings, because many sellers have reported trouble with getting a human to review their situation and respond after the listing was taken down, which is supposed to be decided by a human according to Etsy. Now, only time will tell if that gets better based on what Etsy said in that post in September. But importantly, let's focus on that statement in there about using automated systems. This is not new for Etsy. Etsy has for years used bots which scan listings across the platform and look for things that can indicate policy violations and then automatically take down listings or trigger shop suspensions if enough flags are present. But what's different now is that Etsy is wanting to accelerate this process, and they're also specifically looking for listings that appear to violate the handmade policy in particular. The handmade policy permits designers who work with production partners to sell on Etsy. Specifically, with regard to working with production partners, the policy says this: designers may work with production partners to help make handmade items in certain circumstances. Keep in mind that people come to Etsy to discover items that they might not find anywhere else. Your design and production process should lead to the creation of a unique item that would not exist without you, the designer. So, as a print-on-demand seller, we fall into the designer category of the handmade product category, working with a production partner to make our final products. If you create a design that no other seller is offering, at least not that exact design, you're doing exactly what the policy states. So, if we're allowed to sell print-on-demand products on Etsy, why are the bots flagging some print-on-demand listings and removing them? Well, it's easy to think, first of all, that if Etsy would just tell us the criteria that they're looking for, we could make sure that our legitimate listings are not being flagged for no reason. But think about that for a second. Etsy's not going to publicly post what their bots are programmed to look for, because then the dishonest sellers could also get around those rules. If we assume that Etsy is enhancing their bots to look for listings that appear to be mass-produced drop-shipped products, let's just think about what those might have in common with our print-on-demand listings. We'll start with mockups. Are mockup photos okay? Well, yes, Etsy actually says that mockup photos from our production partners can be used in listings. Specifically, an Etsy House Rules article that I will link to in the description says this: if an item is created with production assistance, the listings photos should be of the finished product or an image supplied by the production partner that accurately depicts the item the buyer will be receiving. Sellers are responsible for ensuring these images properly represent their finished items. With regard to personalized or made-to-order products, it goes on to say this: if an item cannot be photographed because it is personalized or made to order, we ask that you use examples of your similar previous work. This is to give your buyers the most accurate idea of what their custom-made items will look like when they're completed. Images created with the aid of computer software may be used in the additional listing images to give buyers examples of customization options. So, we have Etsy's permission to use images from the production partner and even images created with the aid of computer software for personalized and made-to-order items. I personally think we should be able to argue that print-on-demand products are made to order, but that's a separate argument. Our print-on-demand platforms do provide us with mockups. They're maybe not always the best, but they should be allowed according to that policy. And because of words like should that are in this policy, one could argue that at least some of those statements are suggestions, not rules. Of course, Etsy's going to call the shots. But here's the problem. If we all use the exact same mockups, then our listings can start to look like identical products and even potentially look like other product listings that are on other websites and in Google search results. Especially if you don't do much to customize your design, mockup images are going to start looking alike. And I'm only guessing here, but I would assume that part of identifying listings that might be mass-produced dropship products, part of that could be looking for identical repeated images across the internet and across multiple listings on the Etsy platform. So that means we have policies that allow us to use mockups from our production partners, but then bots potentially looking for images that appear to be repeated generic images, which could include our mockups. So you can see how this could easily result in many legitimate listings getting taken down. But that's just one thing the bots could be looking for. Just to clarify, I'll say again, I'm only guessing here, but what else might be a characteristic of a mass-produced, drop-shipped product listing? Well, if we think about listing description and product details, it's possible the bots are also reading that information. Now, I have no idea what specifically might make a listing sound like a mass-produced product, but what I can say is that your listing descriptions probably shouldn't be 100% copied and pasted information. It should be fine to copy and paste basic product details and information about your shipping or your return policy, but I would encourage you to personally write a specific description in your own words at the top of every listing description. If your entire description sounds super generic and is repeated across many of your listings, that doesn't exactly scream handmade. But if they're all unique and sound like they were written by a human, maybe that helps your listings not look like a mass-produced drop-shipped product. Again, that's just a guess, but it couldn't hurt. Now, let's think about your designs a little bit more. I personally think this is just another reason not to use pre-made designs without altering them, and why copying existing designs from other sellers is not a good idea. The more identical looking product images are out there, the more likely it is that our listings could start to appear to be mass-produced products, because if we're all selling the same thing, how would Etsy know to tell the difference between our listings and a mass-produced drop-shipped product? So when you create your designs, make them unique. Add elements or design styles that other sellers are not using in their listings in that niche. Offering something different can be a great way to stand out in search results to begin with, but also that will make your listing images look at least a little bit less like every other listing out there and possibly just a generic finished product. So ultimately, try to make your listings look and read like a custom-made product and as little like a mass-produced product as possible. I know that's a little nebulous, and of course, I can't guarantee anything specific that's going to prevent things from getting taken down for no reason, because I don't know what the bots are looking for. The only thing that will ultimately prevent that is Etsy refining the programming of their bots over time, or also implementing what they said they would about getting humans more involved in the process. But there is actually one other thing to keep in mind. If you follow all the rules, meaning no designs that are borderline copyright or trademark infringement, no mass-produced products that have little to no personalization, create your own designs, don't list products with designs that are just copied, pre-made, or if you followed all of Etsy's other policies, you'll be in a better position if you do happen to run into a situation where you need to appeal an action that Etsy has taken. If your shop is maybe a little questionable, whatever it is, maybe it's designs that are like borderline trademark copyright infringement, maybe all of your listings have the exact same mock-up photo, the exact same copied and pasted description, they look, basically your shop looks like a bot made your shop. That still could be a legitimate shop, but the point is the perception. If a human does review your case, if you're appealing something and a person is going to review it, how do you want your shop to look to them? If you have a squeaky clean record and a shop with nothing remotely questionable in your listings, then they really shouldn't see a reason not to reverse whatever the decision was. You want to have a good solid case to stand on if that time ever comes that you do have to defend your shop or your listings. And I understand it's hard sometimes to know exactly whether the ground you're standing on is solid, because Etsy's rules and policies can seem kind of vague and you hear different things. But at the end of the day, we all just do the best we can. So at the end of the day, that's what I'm doing. I can't control the bots that Etsy's programming to scan listings or their decisions to increase the speed of removing things before they get more humans involved. All I can control is what's in my listings and in my shop. And yes, again, it's frustrating when things get flagged or taken down for no apparent reason, but until they change the rules, print-on-demand sellers are allowed on Etsy. So that's it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. Check out the links in the description to those articles that I mentioned during the video. And if I come across anything specific from Etsy, like an announcement or new information, I will add a comment under this video with any additional links that come up as well. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.